Today we're looking at ball first contact. So many golfers will hit the ground at the same time as the ball or before the ball. It becomes a huge issue. Imagine you hit a great drive down the fairway and then you go and chunk an iron shot which goes 10-20 yards. It's a complete waste of a shot. I'd much prefer to miss hit one, that I get the ball first with the get up and around the green, that I get a chance to chip and putt. It's certainly going to lower your scores if you do that. Yes, we don't want to be wild, but let's get ball first contact every time. Let's share with you a couple of ways and a couple of secrets and a couple of reasons why you might be hitting the ground before the ball. So as we said, it's really frustrating to hit this ground, the big ball before the little ball. So we really want to work out why that happens. And for me, there's kind of three main reasons why it happens. Reason number one, players from the top of the swing unload these wrists or cast these wrists too early in an effort to either make up for a poor swing position prior to this or in an effort to put speed in through the hands. We want speed in the arms and the torso and the certainly lower half. We definitely do want to feel the speed in the hands at this stage of the golf swing. We want to feel it happens as a cause of what we're doing. So casting the club, widening this arc is probably the major reason. The second reason would be what I call hanging back, so the pressure and weight staying on the trail side. Quite often, we see a lot of players with their head moving back behind the golf ball. Now, the elite golfers, the head does move back, but what happens is as they swing down, the head moves forward slightly and then moves back to its original position at setup. Whereas with the worst golfers, what happens is the head in the backswing will move behind the ball sometimes, which is an issue, and then move further behind, but never move forward. So if your head does move off the golf ball, it's not the ideal model for me, but if it does move off, it needs to move off a minimum amount. Let's say 1 to 2 inches with an iron shot. And if it does move 1 to 2 inches with an iron shot, it then needs to move probably 3 inches in the downswing and then move back 1 inch at contact to get back to that original spot. So the key is, at contact, we want the head back in the original spot it started with. The journey in between will affect things like speed and timing, but as long as you do that, you will make good contact with the ball, as long as you don't do anything else silly. So we want to make sure we move our lower center and our head to the right places at contact, and ideally in the right sequence. We'll get to that in a minute. The third reason, which is probably the reason that's talked about the least, and let's call this the secret, would be the radius of the golf swing. So if I do a very good looking golf swing, but my radius goes lower to the ground through losing my posture, my arms straightening out when they've been bent at address, for example, then my club will bury itself into the ground. So my radius becomes lower than the surface. And I can have a downward angle of attack and the good wrist angles, but if my radius is low, I will hit the ground before the ball. We see that the least, and we see that probably more in short game than I would do in long game. So for me, it's the one you'd worry about least. But if you look at yourself on video and you think you've got good sharpening coming to the ball, your head's back in the right place, and you're still hitting heavy shots, I would look then at feeling that you're a little bit taller through the ball, if you can, particularly with your kind of upper torso. Make sure you get that extension happening a little bit, maybe early, and feel like that handle raises up through the impact zone, which it should be doing. The lowest part of the handle is here, and then the handle should be coming up. I often talk about this with water. Your hand would get into the water here. If the water level was this high, then you'd go along the water for a little bit, and then you certainly go above the water. And that's the way the handle should feel through impact. On a circle, but certainly low to upward through that hitting zone. That is what we want to achieve. So the casting stuff, basically, as I said, it could be caused by things that are happening prior. But the way to feel a better non-casting action is to take your thumbs off the club and bring the club down with your arms. Feel like the wrists are passive. And if you wanted to increase the lag, you'd feel that the shaft works towards the thumbs. So you're not pushing the shaft away with the thumb pressure. And again, the people who cast the club invariably will have those thumbs pushing the club head outwards as they start down. I said that could be because they've got a very narrow backswing. It could be because conceptually they're trying to put the power in very early. It could be any of these things. But the key thing is really, if you take those thumbs off the handle and feel you keep it passive and you try and get the arms down to the club parallel with the ground and these arms down around the ball, that'd be a great way of feeling that you don't cast the club. So that would be way number one, awareness, practice swings, and hitting some shots even with your thumbs off. That is a difficult skill, but have a go. Let's do one. So take your address, take your thumbs off, and then make a swing. So really difficult to make great contact, but see how it makes your arms feel and how it takes those wrists out of play a little bit in that transition area for you. We do want the wrists to have a roll, more into flexion, but not necessarily a lot of widening and shortening or narrowing in that transition area. It will widen slightly, just to be completely honest and accurate, but don't certainly try and widen it, would be my advice, unless you're the kind of golfer that gets the violin being played as you start down. So to improve the contact, this is really a really great effect way of doing it, and we're going to use an alignment rod because most people have them. You can buy other devices. You can use a towel. For a natural fix, you can practice off a downslope. That works quite well. I haven't got a great downslope here to show you, but downslope works quite well if you wanted to do that to improve your natural way of how you would shift down the slope. But if we just take an alignment rod and place it about a club head, have a little bit of space either side of a club head behind the golf ball. And what we're trying to do is obviously make no noise. The best thing about using something plastic here like an alignment rod, it will make a noise if you just clip it. And what we want to do is try and make sure our low point, which is the lowest part of our arc, is going to be 3 to 4 inches after the ball with an iron shot. So it wants to be roughly under your armpit there, which you'll see is 3 to 4 inches past the ball. So if the ball position's in the center, that's going to help promote that. If you're the kind of golfer that feels like you move off the golf ball a lot, then trying to stay a bit more centered in the backswing, maybe even try and feel like you keep a bit of weight or pressure in your lead side, will possibly help as a short-term thing. And it possibly would be the correct amount of shift, but it's just the way you feel it. So that's, again, a second way of trying to do this. Certainly, I've done plenty of videos before on staying centered, so we can look at that also. Putting an iPhone on the floor, monitoring how much your head moves. Certainly feeling that you extend your back more, get your chest more up in that top end of the backswing to make sure your head moves back towards that centered line. These are all ways in which you could improve that. What I'm sharing with you really today is just a way of monitoring the contact and awareness of contact and how you can improve that contact immediately. So you can do this on the practice ground, get a feel for it, and take that to the golf course straight away. And that's the key thing for this. The cause and the effect of things, which is what I like to talk about and what I like you to work on, will be stuff you do in the practice area on a off day when you're not playing golf. But certainly for the golf course, again, you could have the feeling of staying centered and moving forward. Again, we don't want the torso moving too forward too early. I've talked about this in my other videos, but we do want definitely the lower half moving forward and the upper half will catch up. But we don't want to start the downswing with the upper half going forward because that will generally make you swing over the top and get that club in the very sort of steep initial position, which means then if you're a good player, you'll find a way, but you'll end up hanging back and being very stally through the ball, which has its own issues. So let's just try and feel we're going to hit a golf ball now and focus on missing the alignment rod. Try and feel like we land the club target side of the golf ball. And if we get a very low flight but good contact, that's a good sign. So let's have a go. Let's get this a little bit squarer. There we go. So ball position in the center, at least that's what I feel I'm doing. Well, I can't hit that one much better, to be honest. I've got a nice bit of turf, very kind of straight, pressured, what I'd call, pressured strike, which is, again, what most players are looking for, especially the average golfers. They're looking for that pressured feel. Good players tend to find that quite natural. I'm not saying I find it naturally all the time. I tend to be a little bit flicky. So when I get it right like that, it feels really nice. And also for me, the bad shot will tend to just turn over a little bit left. That one never looked like going left, which is kind of, if I had that when I go to the golf course, it's kind of music to my ears, music to my mind, that I feel I can stand there and trust it and be confident. And that's a huge thing for any golfer, to be confident and trusting the ball will never go left. So you have it a couple of ways in which why you might be hitting the big ball before the little ball, and a couple of fixes, a couple of talking around the conceptual ideas that cause it to happen, but also in real importance, a couple of quick ways in which you can try and change it, staying a bit more left-sided and centered, and obviously using that alignment rod drill to get that feeling of that strike straight away. Please let me know down below if you've enjoyed the video by clicking like and also sharing the video. Also, please post comments, questions, feedback, and requests for videos down below. I really appreciate them. Lastly, if you haven't already followed, please hit my logo. Join me on my journey. I'd love to help you with your golf going forward. Only a small percentage of you subscribe at the moment, so I'd love to change that to a slightly higher amount. That'd be great if you could help. And thank you for joining me today at the Forest of Arden, and hope to see you back here real soon.